on Maschine Masters. This is MGTheFuture. Today we'll be doing What Would Producer Do? The track I'm featuring today is going to be Cardi B's Bodak Yellow. This particular track is produced by a producer by the name of Jwhite Did. This is a bell and bass laden track. So everything's really simple, following a particular chord or interval. I went ahead and analyzed the track with a key finder, and it kicked back the key of E minor. It's also in the tempo of 125 beats per minute, but it's in double time. Here's a circle of fifths chart. E minor, of course, we're dealing with the root note, which is E. However, this melody is not following E at all. However, what's tricky about this is despite that melody, and I'll show you that, the bass line is rooted, I believe, in E through the majority of the song. I'm going to go ahead and play a quick snippet of this song pitched up for you guys in case you're not familiar with it. It's contending for summer song of the summer. I know it gets played online a lot. Where I live in the South, it gets played a lot, and I'm sure it's the same up north, considering the response she got at Summer Jam.
Only the real can relate. I used to live in the peace. Now it's the crib with the gay. Rolly got charms, the life was the place. Hard to let these bitches know. Just in case these hoes forgot. I just wanna check the mail. Another tip from on the top. That little bitch, you can fuck with me if you wanted to. These expensive, these is red bottoms, these is bloody shoes. Hit the store, I can get them both. I don't wanna choose, and I'm quick. Cut a nigga off, so don't get comfortable. Look.
What's cool about this instrumental is at the end of it is simply the keys and the notes. So if you wanted to analyze it and kind of convert harmony to MIDI data, you could. This part here. However, in some respects, it's simple enough to play by ear, and I was able to do that. What was interesting, or what threw me off about it, is I was playing E minor by ear, trying to copy that melody. But it's not E minor at all. It's going to be B, C, and E, which is not really a chord because E minor starts up here. So what's interesting about showing you guys this, it ties into two of my previous tutorials. The last one I just did last week, I was telling you guys about major sevenths and minor sevenths. So C minor seventh, or major seventh, C major seventh. What's interesting is this melody is similar to what I was telling you, how people who want to use less keys for a seventh chord, they drop the third one or the second one. They'll do something like that. However, this melody is the opposite, it's dropping this one. So if you take this one and you transpose it down an octave, you're right here. Really simple to follow. It's tricky because they're using this as the bass line, so you would think it's a chord that's starting here, but it's not. But since it hits E so much, that bass line can work. You also do the bass in C if you wanted to, or you can go further back and use that, depending on how you build this chord. This key's not in E minor, so it'll be this one, which is F sharp, but that becomes a diminished chord, so that's why you wouldn't use it. Another thing, a tutorial I did a few weeks back about Drake and Noah, using chords in a very similar way, where you're pushing the same chord over and over again, but just changing intervals, and this is perfect for that. So you have this, then you have A minor, very similar to that Drake track. So I found that interesting as well, that so many of these songs that we're finding in hip hop that make it to radio are rooted or related to the chord A minor, or it's a scale that includes A minor. I think E minor might also have A minor in it. It does. It's on the 4. So keep that in mind too. If you're having trouble trying to put a certain project or remix together, try out any of the minor scales that include A minor. The next part I wanted to show you guys a little bit about the bass. This beat is pretty basic throughout, but when it comes to this breakdown that it has, it gets really crazy. So this is what I got for the kick and the bass. And I'll show you these MIDI notes so you can take a look at it. And you can see it's going from E, F sharp to B. I'm just doing a type of interval that falls within E minor. He does a few other pitch bends as well that might include another key. I think the other key was C. But what's cool about that is how many kicks he's using. One thing about tempos like this, when you're in halftime or you fall into what I call Drake tempo, you can get away with adding a lot more kicks, a lot more snare rolls, and a lot more hat patterns that kind of, you know, do triplets and what have you. When doing this one though, what's tricky is that most of the oomph from the bass and the kick is that they're in a similar key to each other. I believe the kick is tuned to F sharp. In this bass line, I found massive, of course, and I had a particular 808 set that allows you to turn the kick off. So it kind of chops down the envelope, so like there's a really slow attack and you only hear the end of the bass or the sub itself. And then of course if you mix that with a regular kick that has a hard hit on it, it blends a lot better, so you don't necessarily have to sidechain. The only problem you have is that the bass sounds kind of weak. So within Ableton itself, we have a few plugins that'll help us out. One in particular is Vinyl, and I stumbled across this accidentally actually. So I'm gonna let you hear what that sounds like. And you can just sweep through the frequency you want to put more emphasis on. So if you look at this here, it'll tell you what these keys and what frequencies they correspond to. So our main key in this particular track is E2. So we want to try to find that on the graph. And E2 is around 161. And I think you can half that to get E1. Around 82.7. So you could dial right in on the resonance of the actual key of the bass if you wanted to bring it through the speakers a little bit. And of course you can turn the drive down or use this in parallel. Another cool one I like to use a lot is going to be Saturator. Saturator has a similar feature as well, where you can dial in the frequency. And use soft sign and drive it. What you want to pay attention to is this little line right here. As soon as the level approaches that line, it starts to distort, and when it exceeds that line, it's distorting all the time. So I say keep it right under it or touching it. And if you use your mouse and you hover over these other options, you'll notice on the far left over here, it'll tell you what they are. So width, we don't really need to mess with too much. Depth, you can turn it up a little bit. Bass, if it increase, you can increase it for very low frequencies, which is probably what we want. That's too much. So when you have it like that, just turn the wet knob down. It's still too much, so we'll move that back. And I only like my kick around 6 to 3 decibels away from the bass. And since Ableton's meters are in RMS, you can just match it by looking at the green bar. So that's pretty much it for the bass, to kind of get your bass to jump through the speaker a little bit, especially on small speakers and AirPods. Try out the saturator and the vinyl simulation with Ableton Live. It's pretty dope. And of course you save money, so you don't have to buy like R bass or Voice of God and things like that. One more thing I want to show you is the bell itself. I'm going to record the melody real quick. Let's get a bell sound. One of my favorite VSTs is kind of slept on a bit for synthesizers, especially bells and what have you, and pads, is hybrid. And this came with Pro Tools, so you're going to notice a lot of Noah 40 songs, a lot of will.i.am back when he was producing for Usher. A lot of those pads and leads are in this particular VST. The bell from the song itself, though, is not in this VST. I believe from the sounds of it, that type of bell or that type of square sound, it should be in Reason. If I remember that sound correctly, I believe Subtractor and Reason have that exact bell preset. I would love to talk to the producer and find out what he's using, but I think Reason has a very close patch for it. Alright, so I just recorded that real quick. I'm going to go ahead and consolidate it. And then I'm going to turn loop mode on after I quantize it. Alright, now what I want to do or show you is that this particular bell pattern is not 1 octave, it's 2. So what I'm going to do is hold the Alt key with all the notes selected and drag it down. So they're layering it up. And if you want, you can layer it even higher with a pad sound to give it more air. And what's cool about doing that is when you're playing like that, you can also offset them, which is what I really want to do to this. So you can move it over a half beat and you get a different type of effect to change it up. So you do things like that, and you can also play it in reverse, especially when you fold Ableton and you just see the notes for what they are. You can play this melody completely different, so we can do this instead. So there's a few ways that you can flip it and make it your own. But more importantly, why I showed you this is so that when you are playing arpeggios with chords or intervals, in this case where they broke up the C major 7th chord into something totally different with inversions, you can come up with different variations for breakdowns, bridges, hooks, and things like that, or a different instrument altogether. Since they're all overlapping on the same keys, you can catch some counterpoint and call response from it. But that's pretty much all I got from that. The rest of the song is really just how they mixed her voice to stand in front of everything. But anyway, I'm MGTheFuture. Thank you guys for tuning in for this week's session for What Would Producer Do. Shout out to Cardi B and everyone that's part of that project is doing pretty good. If you guys have any questions or concerns, reach out on social media. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at MGTheFuture. That'll be at the bottom of the screen. Also be sure to like and subscribe and follow the Maschine Masters as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time.